Hey guys, Chris with Chris Country with you again. So I'm just going to do a quick video for you. I'll be honest, I really didn't have time to research it too well, so I'm just kind of going off of what I saw on Facebook. But I kind of feel like most of the information is accurate, or at least the trend that I'm about to discuss is pretty accurate with it. So I was perusing around on Facebook last night, and I saw an article that I think it was Country Music Nation or something like that wrote. Uh, Came out of one of their magazines, and it was discussing how George Strait, one of my favorite artists, so I am probably a little biased, so forgive me for that, but for the longest time he held the record of having, I think, 86 consecutive weeks of being at number one on the charts, and he's released since 1982 when he really first came out on country radio. He's released, I think, well over 63 or 64 number one hits. I think it's 63 or 64. It's got to be right around there by now. And he's had, as far as I know, he's had multiple number ones almost every year. I can't really recall if he's had any come out of this year. I'm pretty sure he's had one last year. But if he hasn't had a number one every year, it's pretty darn close. But he's just had, multiple awards and everything like that. But the magazine was talking about his 86 consecutive weeks, and if I'm not mistaken, they were referring to like back in the late 80s when he had 11 number one songs, like basically back to back to back. Every time he released it, it went to number one. I think it started with his hit "Nobody in His Right Mind Would Have Left Her," and I'm trying to remember where it stopped. Overnight Success was the song that he released that didn't make it to number one, that broke the streak. And I think he came out with Love Without End, Amen, or I Cross My Heart. One of those two. Like I said, I'm a little rusty in that area, but one of those two went right back to number one. But they were talking about how that record's finally been broken by, of all artists, Florida Georgia Line. And they were talking a lot about their latest hit with, I think it's Raina or Rava or that one gal I think he meant to be with. Heard the song, decent song, doesn't really excite me, just, eh. But I guess consecutively they've been at number one for 90 weeks. And they're comparing the two, or at least try to compare the two, and that's why I decided to make the video on. To me, there is no comparison. George Strait is the king of country, and the fact that Florida Georgia Line can stay 90 weeks at number one just kind of, to me, goes to show the whole problem with country music right now, which to me, I think it's kind of getting back to where it's in dire straits, especially with mainstream media, the mainstream radio stations. And by mainstream, I'm talking about the radio stations that are tied into either a group or a company. You have like your iHeart stations, I guess there's out here in Colorado Springs, we have Nash FM, and I guess they're tied into the Nash series, something. So those are our two mainstreams. We have it used to be way back in the early 90s, I think even late 80s. It used to be KCCY 96.9. It's kind of changed over the years. That station's been bought out a couple of times. I know it was under Clear Channel for a long time, and then it got bought out by iHeart, and I think right around that time it became Y96.9. And for the longest, not as long as KCCY was out, but a little bit, still a little while. We used to have Cat Country, where it was called Cat Country, and it was 95.1. Again, this is for Colorado Springs. And a few years ago now, well, a number of years ago now, I really can't remember when they made the switch. Had it been like the early 2010s though, but similar toward 2010. But they became Nash FM. To be honest, I really don't listen to those two anymore. Yes, they're still on the presets in my truck, but I really only just kind of flip through those two channels if there's nothing on the other two channels I to listen to, just in case they might happen to be playing the good song. I think why 96.9 is trying to go back to playing a lot of well, I can't say a lot, but some of the older stuff, because sometimes at work they sometimes play 96.9, and sometimes I'll hear older stuff, from that station. But for the most part, I consider them mainstream. They're releasing what is considered new and up and coming. So I don't really listen to them routinely. Plus, I really don't like the fact that, especially on Y96.9, they got the Bobby Bones show, which, okay, he's a popular guy, but he's not a local DJ. And I'm not sure about Nash FM, but I think to a degree both of the mainstream stations have gone to, at least at some point during the day, they've gone to like one big DJ that covers a lot of different radio stations, and to me that just irritates me. 96.9's been doing that, I think even before they got bought up by iHeart. They, back near the late mid to late 2000s, they were playing, I think, Radio Leah, which I liked her, but they were kind of playing her like at night, like after 7 o'clock, and before that it was all local DJs. So, but the main reason I've gotten away, and I digress. I know I got kind of off on a tangent there. The main reason I got away from them is just I don't really like the new country these days. And if you guys have seen my video I put out quite a few years ago about who put rap in my country, you'll understand why. And it's still the same case. And this whole case with Florida Georgia Line kind of proves that point. I hate to say it, I never really cared for that group. I thought Cruz was good, and then I thought when they did the remix with Nelly, I'm like, okay, decent remix. Do I really consider it country? No, but decent remix, sure. And I think the only other song I've really heard from them that I've considered halfway good or halfway listenable to, at least to my ears, is Holy. But everything else, it's just, why are you guys in the country genre? I mean, to me, they just kind of seem like these artists I'm mixing in the other videos. It's just they either try to get in either in the pop arena or one of the other arenas, weren't quite good enough to break out there, so they try and use country to kind of get themselves out there, get themselves heard, and eventually cross over, or they just stay there. And these fanboys just seem to go nuts over it, and I'm just like, why? Just why? And the funny part was, and it kind of makes me think of Taylor Swift. I mean, she's a decent artist, sure. And I mean, I remember watching her when she opened for George Strait back in 2007. Of course, that was when she was back, she was more country back then. But even then, like even that first album, I could kind of tell she had some pop influence, but she was, trying to still be respectful to the country side of things. But I think it was, yeah, definitely from her second album after, I could kind of tell. I always had the inkling she was either going to go country pop or even full-on pop, which ultimately is what happened. And I think she's trying to come back to country, last I heard. I don't know. But it's just that situation, though. I've seen it, and I know this has been going on for years. The country pop thing's been going on, I think, as long as country's been around, it's been going on. And some artists have done good with it. A lot of people consider Shania Twain country pop because she does have a little bit of that poppy influence. I think even to a point, Garth Brooks is a little bit country pop. Although you don't really hear too much pop with him. And speaking of, just one more side tangent. My opinion, if you ask me, when he did that lip singing at one of the recent CMA ACM shows, totally lost respect for him for that. Just, I'm sorry, but especially at a big show, which is already, those two just kind of annoy me. The shows anyway. I mean, if you're going to go to a show and lip sync, you just basically sold yourself out. I mean, yeah, you've got a busy schedule, I get that, but at the same time, you got a lot of other artists who work just as hard, if not harder, and they still actually legitimately sing at an award show. Just my opinion. But getting back to this, it really frustrates me, this whole thing about how in the world can you have the genre country, which, the country music genre, and these guys have spent 90 weeks at number one with songs that don't even sound like country, at least not to me. I'm like, meant to be, hell, there's no steel guitars in there. Okay? And you guys are saying, whoa, he knocked George Strait out of his record. It's because we got a bunch of dumbhead execs, new generation execs, that don't know what country is. They just, to them, country is just kind of like this smorgasbord of, well, let's just experiment with it and see if people like it. Here's my problem. You got all these mainstream radio stations. They all get the heavier advertising. And the execs just flood these stations with this new, I'm going to come out and say it, this new bullshit. Okay? There's very, very few new artists, new songs that I will actually listen to. And it's a lot of the reasons why I've gotten away from mainstream. I think Cole Swindell, I'm starting to go on. I mean, I liked him when he first came out. But, I don't know. I mean, the artist I will listen to that I like so far, Luke Combs. He's really good, in my opinion. I like Cody Jinks. And, the Drew Fish Band's pretty good, too. I like Drew Fish. I'm sure there's another couple of artists that I'm thinking of that are newer that I like. And it's because I'm kind of listening to the local stations. In Colorado Springs, we have 2 local stations out here, and I'm not advertising. I'm not being paid by them. I'm just saying what I listen to. I listen to 107.3, which is Mountain Country. I think you can pull them up online at mymountaincountry.com. And it's either 105.1 FM or 780 AM. They go by the Ranch, and they play more classic country. Like when I'm talking classic country, they tend to want to play things from like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Some 90s. I really haven't heard them play anything much newer than 90s. Once in a while I'll hear like an early 2000s, but it's if I hear that, it's usually like George Strait, Alan Jackson, one of the more traditional artists, if I'm hearing something that new out of that particular station. Mountain countries, they go by regular country. They advertise a variety of music. So they kind of stick to like things from like the 80s, the 90s, and newer stuff. Like I said, they play Cody Jinks, they play Drew Fish Band. They play a good variety of artists, but I think for the most part they do tend to stay away from the newer mainstream stuff, which I'm appreciative of that. Once in a while they'll play some of the newer stuff. Like I've heard them play Florida Georgia Line, and you can either go on their app or online, and you can give it an up or a down vote. If it happens to be on, then you can get it online or on the app, and I'll just give it a quick down vote just because I'm like, no, I don't want to hear that on the station. But, like I said, I know they're trying to do a variety, but fortunately, those songs are once in a while out of that station. So, that's what I listen to. And I really haven't been keeping track of the mainstream country these days just because I don't like it. I don't care for it. I don't like the direction it's going. It's like nobody, at least in the mainstream, everybody, they say, oh, George Strait's the king of country. You're not playing them. Or if you are, you're only playing them during certain times of the day. And granted, I don't think he's released anything in the last year or so. I think it's because he's probably still working on his next album. But it's just, it frustrates me. I'm on those stations. I'm hearing Luke Bryan. I'm hearing, Florida Georgia Line, FGO, whatever you want to call them, Cole Swindell, some of these other new artists. They play Carrie Underwood. Carrie Underwood's like one of the last of the newer artists that I'll still kind of listen to. Although I think sometimes she gets a little poppy for my liking too, but at least she's not horribly outlandish with it. So it frustrates me that they're saying these things though. But my thing is, how dare you try and compare Florida Georgia Line to the king of country. He will always be the king of country. And the fact that, sorry, the camera shifted. The fact of the matter is, if an artist like Florida Georgia Line can sing 90 weeks at #1 in the country music genre, to me is the perfect example of what is wrong with the genre. These executives don't get it. They just keep wanting to keep pushing this bullshit out onto everybody, and they're not giving the actual true country music artists a chance. That's why I don't really listen to the mainstream stations anymore. It's the main reason why I listen to the older stuff. And sometimes I don't even really like listening to the radio now. I'll just usually plug in my phone and play music that I already have off my phone. So that's just my opinion. I figured I'd put that out there. You know, I guess congrats to Florida Georgia Line for staying 90 weeks at #1. Don't know how they did it in this genre. It wouldn't have happened if I really had more of a voice in it, but I'm not an exec. Anyway, hope you guys are having a great day, week, weeknight, whatever time it is, wherever you may happen to be, and I'll see you in the next video.